Well, good morning, beautiful tribe. It's just this I can hear the birds chirping. I can really feel spring in the air here in Long Beach, California. How about you? So today's topic is choosing contentment. And I wanted to make this video about contentment because I feel like, we deeply long for it. I think what most of us experience, sometimes is this chronic kind of hum or background of restlessness or anxiety. And just this subtle sense that things just aren't okay, or maybe you're not okay. And can create a lot of dis-ease and discontent and a feeling of disconnection in our relationships, a feeling of being uninspired in our work. And, we don't really feel present because a part of us is searching all the time for something to fill that space, that hole. And so contentment is something we all long for. And I think a lot of us are waiting to come to a place in our life where we finally just land into contentment. When our lives are finally good enough and we're finally good enough to be okay with them the way that they are. And if we really pay attention, we'll see that that time never comes. It hasn't come yet, has it? And so there needs to be another way. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. So if you are someone who feels like you are living life kind of maybe even fueled from this hum of not quite right or not good enough, or maybe it feels a little restless or anxious. Hi, Aunt Carol, welcome. I'm glad you're here this morning. Then keep watching. This video is for you. And before we dive into today's content, we'll just take a moment to settle in. So you may just take a moment, intend to give yourself this time. Come into your breath. We'll take a deep breath in through our nose. And exhale, sigh it out our mouth. You can do 2 more like that. Deep breath in. And exhale, let it go. Last one, breathing in. And sigh it out. Good. And then scanning your body, relaxing anything that feels tight. Thanks, Aunt Carol. It's so good to have you here. And then choosing to receive anything that you're needing to receive from this teaching at this time in your life. Choosing contentment. I think I'm no stranger to this feeling of just not quite right? Things just aren't quite right. And there's this real sense that we can't totally relax in our life because there's something missing. And this feeling of something missing, it stirs restlessness and anxiety. It stirs agitation. It stirs this scattered attention and energy so that, when we do things, maybe it's not as complete or as good as it could be because we're not as focused. So there's a sense of not really being here, but feeling torn in a lot of different directions. And you see, if when we're looking for that sense of completion outside of ourselves, then we're putting ourselves in this place of endlessly seeking. And the thing that we're seeking can never be satisfied in a search outside of ourselves. And so if we're looking for conditions in our life, like the right job, the right partner, the right home, the right finances, the right body, right? The right, whatever your thing is, if we're searching for that sense of fundamental okayness outside of ourselves, then we will suffer. We will suffer. And so you might just reflect yourself on, what are sort of the conditions that you're placing on yourself and on your life? And you sense that, well, if these conditions can be met, then, I'll finally feel okay. Then maybe I can really be content with my life as it is. And then start to reflect on what I'm pointing to here, that, like, what if that's not it? What if that's not what's missing? And think about it. Has any amount of attainment that you have ever had in your life given you that sense of contentment and completion and wholeness that you're seeking, that you're deeply longing for, and that you actually deserve? It's your birthright. Let yourself see how that search is fruitless. How it's sort of like Bugs Bunny in the cartoon with the carrot sort of dangling in front of him, and he's looking and he's like running for it, and he's running for it, and he never quite catches it. And this is how we live a lot of our life when we're not aware and we're not conscious to this like fruitless searching. And so if it's not outside of ourselves, then how do we find contentment? How do we find this sense of okay as we are and enough as we are right here and right now? Where does that come from? It actually comes from a choice and an intention and a commitment. And it's a leap of faith and a leap of trust. Because we have to decide, we have to have faith and trust that, as Thomas Merton said, we have what we need. It is there all the time. And if we give it time, it will make itself known to us. We have what we need. It's here all the time, like right now. How would that feel if you really trusted that were true? That you have what you need. It's there all the time. Like, just sense, like, how would it feel in this very moment, no matter what's going on in your life, if you really trusted nothing were missing? And then he goes on to say, if you give it time, it will make itself known to you, known to us. And so this points to something that I'm always talking about. This points to allowing ourselves to make this present moment, this very one right now, not an idea of a present moment, but this very one that you actually get to inhabit through your felt sense, through your experience of feeling, of breathing, of seeing, of hearing, of tasting. Let yourself right now, as you're probably doing, or it's probably already happening, let yourself just begin to come into your senses. Give yourself time. And as you do that, as you give yourself time to really come into this moment, you pull your attention out of the place of not enough. And where does the place of not enough live? Well, and there's lots of bright light coming through my window, so I'm going to pull the blinds in a second. That place comes from here. Your ideas, your concepts, your thinking, which your default thinking, the thoughts just that kind of arise out of the ethers, one after another. We have like 70,000 thoughts a day. A lot of that thinking, the center of that is fear. Because your thinking is, hey Marlene, welcome. I'm going to draw the blinds here so that you're not, anyway. I'm not blinded by the sun. Okay, that's better. So your thinking is often, because this nervous system that we all have is sort of a primitive apparatus. And, our thinking is often a way to try to keep ourselves safe from an unsafe world. I mean, it used to be really unsafe a long time ago. And it didn't behoove us, and it didn't ensure our survival to be we needed to be hypervigilant, scanning the horizon all the time for danger. I mean, our ancestors were really anxious. That's how they survived. And now our consciousness is evolving, but our nervous systems haven't quite caught up. So your thinking, your untrained mind is full of fear thoughts. I mean, just track it. Spend any time in reflection or meditation, and you'll notice pretty quickly that your mind is full of fear. And it's not your fault. You don't make your thoughts happen. They come out of nowhere. They go out and leave and go back to nowhere if you don't pay attention to them. And so part of choosing contentment is choosing presence. And part of choosing presence, like to really be here, be here in all of your senses. Make this present moment the center of your life. Like, what is the center of your life? Is it this present moment? Or is it your fear about what's to come? Like right in this moment, sense it. Because we're always coming from a center. There's always something at the center of our awareness from which everything is coming from, right? So when I'm mad at Myron, my husband, right? And if I'm not aware that I'm mad at him, then that becomes my center. Now my center is my anger and all the stories that I'm making up that are fueled by that anger about him. And then I operate from that center. And if I'm operating from that center, then things don't go very well for me or for him. But if I make presence my center, then when anger comes up, I can be aware of it. But I can make a choice about what I say or what I do from that place. And so part of contentment and choosing contentment means choosing presence. Choosing presence, because all of your dissatisfaction, your dis-ease comes from an idea you have in your head. When you get too lost in your thinking, you start comparing. You start measuring yourself up to other people or them up to you. You either feel exalted or deflated in comparison, right? If living out of your head is a nightmare. I love this saying. I shared it at mindfulness meditation this weekend on Saturday. Don't believe anything you think. Now, as we start to unhook from thinking, it can feel a little weird, a little disorienting. That's where faith comes in. Because there is a wisdom beyond you, beyond your will, beyond your thinking, that is a complete, trustworthy operation in this moment. This wisdom's beating your heart beyond your will right now. This wisdom is allowing you to be aware of multiple, many different things with that beyond your will. We don't even understand consciousness. It's such a, it's so beyond our small selves. And if we want to be really content in our life, we need to be able to rest with that wisdom that is upholding all of life. And you can call it what you want. I call it God. You might have another name for it. But unless we learn some way of having faith and trust in the grace and the ease of this only moment, right here and right now, the only place where I ever really have dominion, right? And if I'm really here, I can't be lost. I'm not lost in my worries and my comparisons. I'm not trying to find safety in my limited, small sense of myself through my thoughts. Instead, I'm leaning back and I'm trusting something that's deeper, that's actually part of me. I can't hold it, but it's speaking through me right now. And if we can allow this moment to be the center, and we can hold tight to this belief that nothing is missing, and then we can even ask ourselves, in this moment, how can I be content? What would contentment feel like? You might try that right now. In this moment, what would contentment feel like? Notice what happens. And then string enough of those moments together. Have faith in what arises. And release the voice of doubt that comes up over and over again to try to take you away from this being, this moment. Oh, kind of went off, the connection went off. And, that's the pathway to contentment. We all want it. The yogis call it santosha, And it can only really be cultivated and connected to in this moment. Contentment is a choice. Contentment is a choice. Don't wait for external things outside of you. Don't wait for that. Don't wait for that to bring you to a place of like, okay, now I'm finally good enough. I can be content. It doesn't happen that way. It's from the inside out, right? Like, can you be content in the midst of like laundry on the floor? You don't see that here in my room right now, but there's laundry on the floor. Can you be content in the midst of, arguments and imperfection, messiness, the uncleaned house, the missed library, the overdue library book thing, I don't know about if you're like me, but checking out library books does not seem to be a way for us to save money, because we have a hard time remembering to take them back. Contentment isn't conditional. Contentment is your birthright, but it does require work to remember it. It requires faith and trust and this sacred reorientation again and again and again to this only moment, the only moments that ever exist, and the only place where you'll ever touch happiness in your life. It's right here. Don't go off somewhere else. It's always been here. I hope that served you today. Please like or comment or share this if it did. And if you're not signed up for Happy for No Reason, it's happening on Saturday at 1 p.m. PST, freely offered online. Please do sign up. I'd love to spend some time with you and go a little deeper into this stuff, all around awakening, finding freedom from anxiety and awakening unconditional well-being. Alrighty? So much love and many blessings. Namaste.